What happens when one of Hollywood's most beloved actresses goes head-to-head with daytime television's most controversial hosts? You won't believe what unfolds when Drew Barrymore sits down with the View panel for what was supposed to be a lighthearted, promotional appearance that turned into an absolute disaster. This isn't your typical celebrity interview gone wrong. This is a complete meltdown that had viewers glued to their screens and social media exploding with reactions. Before we get into this incredible story, make sure you hit that subscribe button and drop a comment below because you're not going to believe what unfolds when Drew Barrymore finds herself in the crosshairs of Joy Behar's relentless interrogation style. Last night's episode of The View started innocently enough. Drew Barrymore walked onto the set with her signature warm smile, waving to the audience as she settled into the guest chair. She was there to promote her latest film project and discuss her daytime talk show. But what should have been a routine promotional appearance quickly devolved into something far more sinister. The tension began brewing almost immediately when Joy Behar, known for her sharp tongue and political commentary, decided to pivot the conversation away from Drew's career accomplishments toward more controversial territory. Instead of focusing on Drew's impressive comeback story or her successful transition from child star to respected actress and producer, Joy seemed determined to drag the conversation into murky waters. "Drew, I have to ask you about something that's been bothering me," Joy began, her voice taking on that familiar prosecutorial tone that regular viewers know all too well. "You've been pretty quiet about certain political issues lately, and I'm wondering if that's because you're trying to play it safe for your own show's ratings." The question hung in the air like a loaded weapon. Drew's expression shifted slightly, her smile faltering for just a moment before she composed herself. "I think my focus has always been on bringing joy and positivity to people's lives," she responded diplomatically. "I don't think my political opinions need to be front and center in everything I do." But Joy wasn't satisfied with that answer. She leaned forward, her eyes narrowing as she pressed harder. "That's interesting, because silence in times like these can be seen as complicity. Don't you think celebrities have a responsibility to use their platforms for more than just entertainment?" The other hosts exchanged glances, sensing the shift in energy. Whoopi Goldberg tried to interject with a lighter comment about Drew's upcoming projects, but Joy wasn't having it. She had clearly come prepared for this moment, and she wasn't going to let it slip away. Drew's body language began to change. Her shoulders tensed slightly, and she clasped her hands together in her lap. "I think everyone has the right to choose how they want to use their voice," she said, her tone remaining measured but with an underlying firmness. "I prefer to focus on uplifting content and bringing people together rather than dividing them. But bringing people together sometimes means taking a stand." Joy shot back immediately. "It means calling out injustice when you see it. And frankly, I'm disappointed that someone with your influence chooses to stay on the sidelines when there are real issues affecting real people." The audience grew noticeably quieter. What had started as a friendly interview was rapidly becoming something else entirely. Drew's publicist, sitting in the wings, looked increasingly uncomfortable as she watched her client being cornered on live television. Sunny Hostin, apparently taking her cue from Joy, decided to pile on. "Drew, you've talked about your struggles with addiction and mental health, which we all respect and admire you for sharing. But don't you think that gives you a unique perspective on issues like healthcare and social justice that you should be speaking out about?" Drew's jaw tightened almost imperceptibly. "I think my story speaks for itself," she replied, her voice now carrying a slight edge. "I've been open about my struggles because I wanted to help people who might be going through similar things. But that doesn't mean I have to become a political pundit." "Nobody's asking you to become a political pundit," Joy interjected, her voice rising slightly. "But when you have millions of followers and a platform like yours, staying silent sends a message too. And that message is that you're more concerned with your brand than with actual human suffering." The accusation hit like a slap. Drew's eyes flashed, and for the first time since sitting down, she looked genuinely angry. "That's not fair," she said, her voice still controlled but with steel underneath. "You don't know what I do privately or how I choose to help people." "Then, tell us," Joy pressed. "Because from where I'm sitting, it looks like you're playing it safe while the world burns around us." The camera caught Drew's face in close-up, and viewers could see the moment something shifted. The warm, bubbly personality that had made her America's sweetheart was being replaced by something harder, more defensive. She had come on the show, expecting to chat about her latest projects and maybe share some behind-the-scenes stories from her talk show. Instead, she found herself under attack for her political choices. "I think you're being incredibly unfair," Drew said, her voice now carrying real heat. "I came here to talk about my work, not to be lectured about my civic duties by someone who doesn't know the first thing about my private life or my personal values." Joy's eyebrows shot up. "Oh, so now I'm the bad guy for asking legitimate questions about your public responsibilities? You're the bad guy for ambushing me with an agenda that has nothing to do with why I'm here." Drew shot back, her composure finally beginning to crack. The tension in the studio was palpable. The audience sat in stunned silence, unsure whether to applaud or remain quiet. The other hosts looked uncomfortable, realizing that what had started as Joy's typical provocative questioning had spiraled into something much more personal and hostile. But Joy wasn't backing down. If anything, Drew's pushback seemed to energize her. She had drawn blood, and she wasn't about to let up now. The confrontation that would soon explode across social media was just getting started, and neither woman seemed willing to back down from the fight that was rapidly escalating beyond anyone's control. Joy leaned back in her chair with a smug expression, clearly relishing the fact that she had gotten under Drew's skin. "Look, I'm not trying to be the bad guy here," she said with mock sincerity. "I'm just asking the questions that America wants answered. And if that makes you uncomfortable, maybe you should ask yourself why." Drew's hands were now visibly shaking with anger. "You know what makes me uncomfortable? Being set up like this. I agreed to come on your show to talk about my work, not to be psychoanalyzed by someone who thinks ambush journalism is entertainment." "Ambush journalism?" Joy laughed, a harsh sound that cut through the studio. "This is called having a conversation with substance. Maybe you're just not used to being challenged because everyone around you tells you what you want to hear." The accusation was like throwing gasoline on a fire. Drew's face flushed red, and she sat forward in her chair, her voice rising for the first time. "You don't know anything about my life or the people around me. You're sitting there making assumptions based on absolutely nothing." Whoopi tried again to redirect the conversation. "Ladies, maybe we should—" "No," Drew interrupted, her eyes locked on Joy. "Let's finish this. Since Joy seems to think she has me all figured out, I'd love to hear more of her brilliant insights." The sarcasm was thick enough to cut with a knife. Joy's eyes lit up with the thrill of the fight. "All right, you want to go there? Let's go there. You talk about bringing joy and positivity, but what about responsibility? What about using your privilege to actually make a difference instead of just making people feel good about themselves? And what exactly have you done to make a difference?" Drew shot back. "Besides sitting behind this desk, throwing stones at people who actually create things." The studio fell dead silent. Even the cameras seemed to hold their breath. Joy's face went white, then red. She had been called out on live television, and everyone knew it. "Excuse me." Joy's voice was dangerously quiet. "You heard me." Drew continued, her fear completely gone now, replaced by righteous anger. "You want to talk about responsibility? What's your responsibility as a host? Is it to create meaningful dialogue, or is it to humiliate your guests for ratings?" Joy's composure finally cracked. "I don't humiliate anyone. I ask tough questions that need to be asked. If you can't handle that, maybe you shouldn't be doing interviews." "Tough questions." Drew laughed bitterly. "Is that what you call this? Because from where I'm sitting, it looks like you had your mind made up about me before I even walked through that door." Sarah Haynes attempted to jump in with a peacemaking gesture. "Maybe we're all getting a little heated here." "No, Sarah," Drew said, her voice cutting through the attempted intervention. "I want to hear what Joy has to say. She clearly has strong opinions about how I should live my life and use my platform. I'm curious to know where this moral authority comes from." Joy's eyes narrowed dangerously. "My moral authority comes from caring about something bigger than myself. From using my voice to speak truth to power instead of just trying to make everyone like me. And my moral authority comes from surviving things you couldn't even imagine." Drew fired back. "From rebuilding my life from nothing and using my experiences to help other people do the same. But apparently, that's not good enough for you." The tension in the room was suffocating. The audience sat in stunned silence, unsure whether they were witnessing television history or a complete disaster. The other hosts looked like they wanted to disappear into their chairs. Joy wasn't finished. "You know what? You're right. It's not good enough. Because when you have the platform you have and you choose to stay silent on issues that matter, you're part of the problem. Issues that matter to who? Drew demanded. To you? Because the last time I checked, bringing hope and healing to people's lives matters too. But I guess that's not political enough for your taste. Hope and healing. Joy scoffed. That's just feel-good nonsense. Real change requires uncomfortable conversations and taking stands, not just making people feel better about themselves. Drew's voice rose to match Joy's volume. So my entire career, my entire life's work, is just feel-good nonsense? My recovery, my talk show, the millions of people who've told me my story helped them. That's all meaningless because I don't tweet about politics enough for Joy Behar. The personal nature of the attack hit its mark. Joy realized she had crossed a line, but her pride wouldn't let her back down. I'm not attacking your recovery or your personal journey. I'm talking about your public responsibilities. You just called my life's work feel-good nonsense, Drew said, her voice shaking with emotion. How is that not attacking everything I've built? The cameras captured every moment of the exchange, the close-ups revealing the raw emotion on both women's faces. Drew's eyes were bright with unshed tears of anger, while Joy's face was set in stubborn defiance. Ana Navarro, who had been quiet throughout the exchange, finally spoke up. Maybe we should acknowledge that there are different ways to make a positive impact. Thank you, Ana, Drew said, turning to her with genuine gratitude. At least someone here understands that not everyone has to be a political activist to make a difference. But Joy wasn't ready to let it go. Different ways. Sure. But some ways are more effective than others. And some ways are just about protecting your own interests. Drew's head snapped back toward Joy, her eyes blazing. Protecting my own interests? Are you kidding me right now? Look at your career choices. Joy pressed on, seemingly unable to stop herself. Look at the projects you choose, the things you talk about, the things you avoid. It's all calculated to offend no one and appeal to everyone. That's not courage, that's marketing. The accusation hung in the air like a toxic cloud. Drew stared at Joy in disbelief, her mouth slightly open. The other hosts looked horrified at how far things had gone. You think my entire life is a marketing strategy? Drew's voice was barely above a whisper, but the hurt in it was unmistakable. Joy seemed to realize she had gone too far, but her pride wouldn't let her back down. I think you're more concerned with being liked than with being real. That was the final straw. Drew's composure shattered completely, and what happened next would be replayed on social media for days to come. Drew stood up abruptly, her chair scraping against the floor with a harsh sound that echoed through the stunned studio. Her face was flushed with anger and hurt, tears threatening to spill over as she pointed directly at Joy. You want to know what's real? Drew's voice cracked with emotion. Real is surviving addiction at 15 while you were sitting comfortably behind a desk somewhere. Real is rebuilding your entire life from nothing while people like you waited for me to fail again so you could have something to talk about. Joy opened her mouth to respond, but Drew wasn't finished. The floodgates had opened, and years of frustration came pouring out. Real is getting clean and staying clean while maintaining a career in an industry that chews people up and spits them out. Real is using my platform to help other people who are struggling instead of tearing them down for sport, like you do every single day. The audience was completely silent now, captivated by the raw emotion pouring from Drew. Even the camera operators seemed transfixed, their lenses capturing every moment of the breakdown. Joy tried to interject. Drew, I never said, you never. Said what? Drew whirled around, her voice rising to a shout. You never said my life's work was meaningless? You never said everything I've built is just a marketing strategy? Were we watching the same conversation? Whoopi attempted to restore order. Ladies, let's all take a breath here. No. Drew's voice cut through the studio like a blade. I'm done taking breaths. I'm done being polite while people like her sit there and judge me for not being political. Enough. Not angry enough. Not whatever enough to meet their standards. She turned back to Joy, her eyes blazing with fury. You want to know why I don't engage in political debates? Because of people like you. Because no matter what I say or do, it's never enough. If I speak out, I'm preaching. If I stay quiet, I'm complicit. If I focus on positivity, I'm naive. If I address serious issues, I'm being performative. Joy's face had gone pale, but she still tried to defend herself. I was just trying to have a meaningful conversation about. Meaningful? Drew laughed. Bitterly. There was nothing meaningful about what just happened here. You ambushed me with a political agenda, dismissed my entire career as fake, and then acted like you're some kind of moral authority. That's not journalism. That's just cruelty. The other hosts sat frozen, unsure whether to intervene or let the confrontation play out. The audience could sense that something unprecedented was happening, and the energy in the room was electric. With tension, Drew began pacing behind her chair, her hands gesturing wildly as she spoke. You know what the difference is between us, Joy? When I went through hell, I used it to help other people. When you go through your day, you use it to make other people feel like hell. That's not fair, Joy protested weakly. Fair. Drew spun around, her voice dripping with sarcasm. You want to talk about fair? Is it fair to invite someone on your show under false pretenses? Is it fair to attack their character and their life's work because they don't fit your political agenda? Joy's face flushed red with anger and embarrassment. I don't have a political agenda. I'm trying to hold celebrities accountable for their platforms. Accountable to who? Drew demanded. To you? To your version of what activism should look like. Because the last time I checked, you weren't elected to be the moral police of Hollywood. The tension in the studio was suffocating. Even the production crew seemed to be holding their breath, unsure whether to continue rolling or cut to commercial. But no one moved, transfixed by the spectacular meltdown unfolding before them. That Drew's voice dropped to a dangerous whisper. You know what's really sad about this? I actually used to respect you. I thought you were a strong woman who wasn't afraid to speak her mind. But what I see now is someone who's so desperate to stay relevant that she'll tear down anyone who doesn't validate her worldview. Joy's mouth fell open in shock. I am not desperate to stay relevant. No. Drew's eyebrows shot up. Then explain this. Explain why you felt the need to turn what should have been a friendly interview into a character assassination. Explain why you couldn't just let me talk about my work without trying to score political points. The cameras captured Joy's face as she struggled to respond, her usual quick wit seemingly abandoned. For the first time in the interview, she looked genuinely rattled. Drew continued her assault. You sit there every day throwing stones at people from your glass house, acting like you're some kind of moral superior. But what have you actually done? What have you built? What have you created that's made the world a better place? I've been a voice for important causes, Joy said defensively. A voice, Drew repeated mockingly. Just a voice. Not action, not change, just noise. While you've been talking, I've been doing. While you've been judging, I've been helping. While you've been tearing people down, I've been building them up. The audience began to murmur, sensing the shift in the room. Drew's words were hitting home, and Joy's defensive posture made it clear who was winning this battle. Drew moved closer to Joy's chair, her voice low and intense. You want to know what real courage looks like? It's not sitting behind a desk, making snide comments about people who are actually trying to make a difference. It's getting up every day and choosing to be better than you were yesterday, even when people like you are waiting for you to fail. Joy's eyes flashed with anger. You don't know anything about my life or what I've been through. You're right, Drew said, her voice suddenly calm and controlled. I don't know anything about your life, just like you don't know anything about mine. The difference is, I'm not sitting here pretending to be your moral superior. The studio fell silent again. Drew looked around at the other hosts, her expression a mixture of disgust and disappointment. I came here today to talk about my work and maybe share some laughs with women I thought were my peers, she said quietly. Instead, I got ambushed by someone who thinks attacking people is entertainment. She grabbed her purse from beside her chair and slung it over her shoulder. You know what, Joy? You win. You got your viral moment. You got your clicks and your engagement. I hope it was worth it. Joy seemed to realize that she had pushed too far. Drew, wait. We don't have to end it like this. Drew paused at the edge of the set and turned back one final time. Actually, we do. Because this is who you are, Joy. This is what you do. You tear people down and then act surprised when they don't want to play along. Her voice carried across the silent studio with devastating clarity. I hope someday you figure out that being cruel isn't the same as being brave. With that, Drew. Barrymore walked off the View set, leaving behind a stunned audience, shell-shocked hosts, and a moment of television that would be dissected and debated for weeks to come. The confrontation was over, but the aftermath was just beginning.